A long time has passed since the last tournament. I've spent several hours honing my skills, my launch power, my launch technique, refining my own deck. After a while, I'm finally ready to come back on the stage. So anyway, I pulled up to the tournament and immediately lost my first round by losing 8 points and 3 launches. What? Anyway, you probably already saw them in the footage presented, but I'm going to be going over the deck once again real quick. I'm recording this after the fact. The tournament already happened for me. It is currently the peak of a heat wave. It sucks. It's like 40 degrees in a country that shouldn't be going over 30. It's pretty bad. Anyway, first bay, I'm running good old Silverwolf. I did use Silverwolf in the last tournament video too, although I had it on 760 Hexa. Today I have it on 960 Freeball. I decided that even though the burst risk is definitely higher on Freeball than on Hexa, the stamina is so much better and the movement is so much better that I just think it's a much better choice. It's also going to be a lot better at outspinning things like rods, which is something that I tend to struggle against a little bit. Now, second pick, I'm going with Dran Buster. Once again, this guy has been with me to every single tournament. I love using him. He might have become my favorite bay at this point. And I'm running him on a 150 kick combo. Now, I think Buster 160 low rush is by far and away the best Buster combo. However, my low rush is busted. The surface is concrete damaged, and one of the gears is chipped off. It was performing extremely inconsistently, so I had to replace it for something else. 150 to lower the height down to low height, and then kick for some pretty good speed at the beginning, and it can actually re-stabilize at the end, which sometimes does let Buster actually get some spin finishes, so I think it's a fairly solid alternative to 160 low rush, at least for now. And finally, we have one of my Ryzen favorites. He's pretty new now, Dran Strike, and I'm choosing to run him on 360 taper. I really like 360 on Strike, lines up perfectly with the contact points, does a lot of damage, has good stamina. I prefer it over 960 personally, it just has performed better basically always. And then as for the bit, I'm going with taper. Now normally the best pick here would probably be kick. But for my personal experience, I prefer playing with taper. It lets me play a little more aggressive, it's a little bit faster. I do also already have kick on Buster, but that's not really the reason. I personally just like taper a lot more. I feel like my tilt launches are a bit more controlled as well, but that may just be a thing with my limited practice. Regardless, this guy hits extremely hard. He's kind of like a fusion between Phoenix and Buster in my opinion. Very heavy, very hard hitting. Better stamina than this guy, worse stamina than Phoenix. Very fun to use. Very cool fucking bay. Alright, so that's the deck I'm running. No drains for today, unfortunately. The tournament is a double elimination bracket. There is no Swiss this time, which means that, you know, I immediately lose my first round and I'm stuck in a loser's bracket and I have to win every single time without losing a singular time or I am immediately out. I'm going to try something a little bit different this time than usually I would do. I let the match play out with music, which I'm still going to have music. And then I would do a post-match analysis. What I'll try to do instead though is do some, I guess, live commentary instead, try to go through things a little bit quicker. Anyhow, I've done a lot of practice since last tournament. I do think I've improved significantly, however, bad launches still happen. It is what it is. Enjoy the video. Now I'm going to do a real quick recap of round 1. You already kind of know what happened. I lost horribly, and I just quickly go over the launches pretty much. The opponent deck wasn't even really that crazy. They had what, Tyrannobe, Scorpio Spear, Wizard Rod, but not really on the greatest build either. I think Wizard Rod Ball is significantly less threatening than Wizard Rod Hexa, but regardless, I still got my ass kicked. I immediately messed up my first launch. What I meant to go for here is go for like an instant drop, kind of flick to the left, and then come back in and swoop in against Rob. What happened instead is I, for some reason, went right. Maybe I pulled the string too hard, and then Drain Strike does the most random trajectory I've ever seen in my life, and flies straight into the extreme. Taper things, I suppose. It is what it is. On the second launch, I'm launching Wolf against Scorpio Spear, and I'm pretty confident. I feel like Scorpio doesn't really hit that hard to be afraid of this thing, but actually gets some insane crits. Like, it's like 3 back-to-back, and then it hits like the tiniest little taps against the opposite corner of the stadium, completely destabilizes Wolf somehow, and it just flies straight into the pocket. I feel like I just got unlucky there. It's not what you really could have done there. Now, this third launch, this one didn't actually show in the intro. I'm launching Buster against Tyranno Beat here. I feel like Buster is generally pretty good AVA because it's Buster. He doesn't really have a bad matchup or a good one either. And I forget, like, a pretty instant pocket. However, my opponent made a mistake. They launched too early. And for this tragic mistake in their gameplay, they are punished by being able to relaunch and not losing any points. On the relaunch, somehow Buster gets hit against the safe side of the stadium, bounces back with the smallest amount of speed, and that knocks it straight into the extreme. Honestly, I don't really know what to say about this match. I feel like my strike launch definitely messed up. My Buster launches were like okay. I technically won the Buster round, but my opponent made a mistake, which saved him from losing points, which makes sense. And then with the Wolf, I feel like I did alright. That kind of just got unlucky and I got stabilized. It is what it is. I don't really know if there's much I can take away from this round one. But yeah, let's just get into the meat of things. Alright, let's see the losers bracket run. Okay, going into game 2, this is now losers round 1. Immediately starting losers is not ideal. My opponent is a Pegasus Blast, a Whale Wave, and a Wizard Rod. Pretty interesting deck. I think overall actually quite good. For the first launch, I'm using Strike against their Whale Wave, and I actually, you know, just dodged their X-Dash, but because it was no contact, it is just a relaunch, which is fine. And then on the relaunch, I get a much worse position than I did on my first launch, because I couldn't get the launch again, and then I get an extremely unlucky crit directly into the extreme. Oh well. Second launch is my Wolf against Rod, and I am like not even remotely scared here. My Wolf outspins every Rod and it's never even close. But what is funny in this round actually is that Wizard Rod randomly deflects itself into the rail to stabilize itself because of Hexa, and then Wolf combos it directly into the extreme, which is very funny. Next is Drain Buster against their Pegasus Blast. I'm not really super confident against Blast Buster. I think it's very heavy, it's hard to knock out. And then Blast immediately gives me 3 points by jumping into the extreme, except it was no contact, so it doesn't count again. On the relaunch, Buster gets knocked into the pocket but comes back immediately because he's the GOAT, and then he gets knocked into the extreme, which is not ideal. It is now twice in a row that they extreme themselves, get a relaunch, and then extreme me back. Funny how that works out. Anyway, I'm currently down 6-3, that is not ideal. But I calmed myself, made sure to think about my next launch, not overthink things. I'm expecting Wizard Rod here because they're 1 point away, and they do in fact go Wizard Rod, which means I'm going with Wolf, and this is a guaranteed point. Pretty much, unless the only reasonable way for this to be a loss for me is if Rod randomly gets like a 160 crit against Wolf into a pocket, or if my opponent launches at like 30,000 RPM and manages to outspin Wolf. Neither of which happens here, so it's pretty easy, pretty casual spin finish for Wolf. Now, it is a rematch between Whale Wave and Strike. Last time I got instantly boomed to the extreme. I'm not letting it happen again. Time for Strike to show up. I'm once again aiming to end at the opposite corner of the stadium with a flick launch, and I get exactly that. And he booms Whale directly into the pocket. One clean hit is all he needed. It's all about positioning when it comes to playing Strike. I'm now only 1 point away from winning this, making this comeback. It is once again Buster against Blast. However, we do not get repeats over here. Immediate extreme, I get the points that were stolen from me, and we win game 2. Now game 3, or I guess losers round 2 against Makuro here. He was running a very interesting, very fun deck. I respected very much, quite creative too. Running Phoenix Rudder, Whale Wave, and Tyranno Beat, which is as a T-Rex reprint. I like opening with Strike, that is exactly what I do here. He goes for a crazy X-Dash, misses the first one, but then scoops up Rudder on the second hit and snipes the Ratchet clean off for 2 points. Up next is Buster against Tyranno Beat. I actually thought that my Buster exploded here because my 150 kick combo is like the exact same as theirs colors-wise, so I thought I bursted, but nope. I bursted them. That's another 2 points for me. Third launch here is my Silver Wolf against their Whale Wave. It was kind of at this tournament that I realized how hard a Whale Wave actually hits. I get like one-shotted into the pocket unexpectedly. I was not prepared for that at all. But it definitely launched in a way that could have maybe prevented that. It's alright. We learn. On the fourth launch, I'm once again going Strike against his Whale Wave. I almost get tapped into the extreme because of a horrible positioning, but I barely jump back out. I break this fucking stadium we're fighting on, which is not ideal. Whale almost goes into the pocket, but barely manages to survive, and then outspins Strike just barely. We also broke the arena, which, oopsie. For this next launch, it is my Wolf against Rhino Beat. Almost gets boomed to the extreme immediately, but just barely escapes it, and now I just need Wolf to clutch up and not get absolutely crit everywhere, which it seems to be doing just fine. Rhino Beat does get some pretty crazy hits at the beginning, but just eventually runs out of steam, and Wolf is able to pretty cleanly just relax and get me a spin finish here. Next, Buster against Phoenix Rudder. Kinda hoping to get another Ratchet Snipe here, but doesn't look like it's gonna happen. But somehow, in late game, Buster gets a crit directly into the pocket. Honestly, kind of unexpected. I feel like Buster doesn't usually have the gas anymore that late into the game to really get anything, but he did. And it wins me the game. It is now time for my losers round 3. My opponent is running Pegasus Blast, or Hell's Blast, I don't know, something Blast, Wizard Rod, and Arbor Wyvern. We start our first launch with Duran Buster against Blast. Almost immediately get a one-shot into the pocket and then almost move into the extreme, but both times Blast just gets right out of there. And I'm thinking it's over, but Buster actually completely destabilized Blast, and because of kick, it's able to hang on long enough to outspin as well. That is a first point for me. Now, this second launch, I'm going to let it speak for itself. Absolute aura farmed right there, man. Gets boomed to the pocket, immediately comes back, snipes right into the other pocket, and now it's Wolf against Hover. I'm a little concerned about Hover. I feel like it's very good at getting bursts, and, you know, Wolf can burst somewhat easily with free ball, but I'm kind of just hoping I can get away here. Hover kind of wastes a lot of his stamina flying around the stadium, and seems to have lost most of its power, so by the end, the Wolf can just kind of sit around and outspin very convincingly, so that actually went quite well, despite my concerns. Now on the reshuffle, for some reason, I have a thing telling me they're going to go Wizard Rod. They haven't scored a single point yet. They're probably feeling desperate. They might just want to get Rod just to get something on the board. And I do something a bit unorthodox and also just go with Wolf immediately, kind of expecting that. And I'm actually able to guess perfectly right. They go Rod, and you know what happens. Wolf against Rod. Rod actually bounces around a lot. I think they had it on an attack bit. I'm not super sure. You'll probably see it in the overlay if I manage to see it in the recording. Yeah, even with that, Wolf's just doing Wolf things. He's the GOAT. I love playing Wolf. Next, it's time for Duran Strike. Going up against Hover here, and Hover just booms itself into the pocket. However, I believe it did not make contact, so my opponent is able to get a free relaunch. On the relaunch, I had to go for the corner, and it kind of works out. I put myself in a decent position. However, on the way back, I must have caught some airtime or something, because my 360 gets sniped off, which is pretty rare, but it is what it is, unfortunate. You know, it's happening a lot where my opponent self-KOs themselves, and then the amount of points that they should have lost, they end up winning against me on the relaunch. It's happened very consistently so far. I didn't really notice it while I was playing, but on rewatch, god damn, that happened 3 times already now, no? Jesus. Anyway, next launch is Buster against Blast again. I don't think I can get this lucky. I feel like Buster against Blast is something I don't really like to see, but I have been winning it somehow. But here, yeah, my luck runs out. Buster doesn't really get a good hit against Blast and gets outspun. Reshuffle once again, and I, for some reason, once again, just think you're gonna go Rod first again. They seem like the kind of player that just likes to toss in Rod when they're disadvantaged. And I guess right again, which, well, it's Wolf against Rod. You know what's gonna happen. We all know what's gonna happen. It's always gonna happen. It just doesn't matter. And now it is a rematch between my Duran Strike and their Hover Wyvern. I'm not feeling too great about that relaunch into Ratchet Snipe. I'm hoping I can redeem myself. Gotta go for an instant drop. Doesn't quite work out, but I got a crazy X-Dash, scoop them up, and sent Hover Wyvern flying out of the stadium, which in this tournament, out of bounds is considered an overfinish, so that is the game. Now my next match is going to be a rough one. My opponent is running Wizard Rod, Shark Scale, and Cobalt Dragoon. Also not the last time I'm going to see this deck today. I'm opening with Strike, as I usually do. I'll go for reverse X, but mess up my tilt, so it just goes right back. With that being said, though, he is beating the living shit out of Wizard Rod, sending it flying towards multiple pocket directions several times, but none of the hits can quite knock it out, unfortunately, and I just lose my spin. It's fine, though. Only 1 point loss. It could be a lot worse. Next, however, scary shit. Playing Silver Wolf against Shark Scale, and I think it's the first time I played Scale with Wolf, and I was just not really sure what to expect. I actually managed to get a really nice sweep drop on the opposite side. However, it doesn't matter. I fall at a bad time, and I get scooped directly into the pocket by Shark. It's alright though. Last matchup here before the reshuffle is going to be Drain Buster against Kobold Dragoon. Kobold Dragoon on Elevate. I'm trying to aim for a Ratchet Snipe or a Bit Snipe or something, because I know it's easier to burst, and that is exactly what happens. Drain Buster, my goat, gets some points on the board. Now, I'm actually able to request a side switch here, since we can do side switches during reshuffles if we are down points, and I decided to go back to B side, mainly because I feel like I've played a lot on X side lately, so just wanted to kind of try it out. No real reason. I don't think I'm better on any side specifically. I'm probably better on X side, but I just like getting more practice on both sides, even though it's a tournament. With money on the line, I just want to switch. And on reshuffle, it is once again Wolf against Shark, which I did not like to see. On the first launch, I launched a little bit late on accident, so we just get a quick relaunch before the game actually finishes. And then on relaunch, looks like I'm able to get a little more lucky with my positioning with Wolf. Shark isn't able to get any crazy hits on me this time, which is very nice. The Wolf takes that game. Now it's once again Strike against Rod. Looks like the reshuffle is going to be the exact same as last time, but the sides have swapped. I kind of messed up my launch. I'm going to go for like a weird drop launch, but I just ended up going straight forward anyway. I got a lot of strong hits on Rod, kind of hoping I can make it lose all its spin by just bowling it around the arena, but even with that, I think my Strike lost too much stability while going for those crazy hits, so it's not able to quite destabilize Rod. It gets very close though. Now it is once again Buster against Dragoon. I'm hoping to do the exact same thing I did before. Dragoon, so much easier to burst because of Elevate. Buster is Buster, but even better than a burst, I get a direct extreme. We both immediately dash. Buster, however, has more power behind it. My opponent does request a side switch though. They want the B side back. Reshuffle, it is once again Strike against Rod, which hopefully I can clutch up, but I kind of messed up my first launch and just fly directly into the pocket, but since it was an immediate self-knockout, I do get a relaunch, which I think is the first time that or second time, I don't know, it hasn't happened that often, so I don't feel too bad about it. On a relaunch, I get a really crazy trajectory, and I miss a lot of the hits. I boom Rod into the pocket, but he comes back out, because goddammit, just has to happen. And unfortunately, even though I got a really good hit, Rod 160 is Rod 160 and just jumps right back out, and I'm not able to secure any more knockouts. Tried kind of getting bullied this round, but it's fine. At least it's only losing 1 point every time, which is definitely completely fine. Now here it is once again, Shark against Wolf, and I'm a little scared, you know, Shark doing Shark things. Almost moves me into the extreme. Doesn't quite happen though. Wolf looks like it's going to be tanking stuff a lot better. Yeah, I think this first game I got a pretty unlucky position, but this time, once again, able to outspin. Wolf proven itself to be quite a good defender as well. Hey, now my opponent for losers round 5 is running the exact same deck pretty much as our previous opponent. He's running Shark Skill, Kobold Dragoon, and Wizard Rod. Now the first launch isn't really what I want to see. It is their Shark Scale against my Strike. Strike doesn't really do very well against Shark Scale normally. The first launch, I immediately fly into the pocket, which isn't what I was trying to do, but thankfully I get a relaunch. On the relaunch, I'm sure to aim my launch a little bit better. I got quite a few really strong hits against Shark. Barely missed the pocket like a quadrillion times though. And then, while Shark gets destabilized, Strike gets a crazy extreme on Shark. We're up 3-0. Second launch is Buster against Rod. Buster can take runs against Rod, almost does, but the judge calls a Shroud hit, which is fair, so we relaunch. On relaunch, I'm sure I'll be a bit more careful with my launch, not to hit the Shroud hit this time. However, my launch position gets completely messed up while trying to not hit the plastic, so I just fly into the pocket immediately and lose 2 points. Unlucky. Would have definitely preferred to only lose 1 point to spin, but final launch here is going to be Silver Wolf against Dragoon, and I feel like it's cooked. I don't really know how to do anything against Dragoon here, so my tech is to just launch at an absurdly high RPM and hope that Dragoon isn't able to spin steal. I don't really know what else to do, to be honest. This is not a matchup that I've ever practiced at all. It kind of seems to be working out. I mean, they're going to be spinning here for ages. And now, it may have been because of destabilizing with the assist plate. I don't really think that happened, but somehow the Giga High RPM strat worked. And Raccoon is not able to spin steal. So Wolf takes a spin finish. On reshuffle, I'm expecting a Rod, so the Wolf comes out, first slot again. And I guess right. You know what this means. Do you know what this means? You should know what this means. I'll tell you what it means. It means I outspin. Once again, very convincingly. Next, the rematch between Shark and Strike. Not feeling too crazy about it. I'll almost actually boom it into the extreme again, but just barely missed, and looks like Strike has lost a lot of his juice from the weird launch angle I had at the beginning. It's definitely not outspinning Stamina Shark. Even Attack Shark, it just doesn't outspin. So, I lose a spin finish there. It's alright though. Up next, Grand Buster against Cobalt Dragoon. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I feel like Grand Buster's a pretty good matchup with Dragoon. It's very hard to spin steal from Buster for one, and also Buster's a pretty good chance to knock it out or burst it. And that is exactly what happens. I boom it into the extreme shortly before flying out of the stadium myself. Buster is my goat, man. Amazingly, I have made it all the way to losers quarterfinals now, going up against Molly. Molly is running Wizard Rod, Phoenix Wing, and I believe Tyranno Roar. So 2 Phoenix Wings technically. First launch, Strike against Roar. I don't get the best positioning. He does, however. And Strike just misses a lot of good hits. And Tyranno Roar tilting a lot there, but runs into Strike, manages to put itself back up, and somehow is able to outspin my Strike, just barely. Up next is going to be the Wolf against his Phoenix Wing. However, there's an immediate air contact, so we got a relaunch. One thing I noticed specifically when playing against this player is that they have a very, very unsteady hand, and their launcher would like flick around uncontrollably on launch, would cost a lot of relaunches to happen. You'll see it later. Anyway, on relaunch, once again, Wolf Phoenix battling it out. Kinda just hoping that Wolf can dodge all the strong hits, and then in the end game, it's basically a guaranteed win. And it's looking like that's what's gonna happen here. Phoenix doesn't get any good early hits, and just runs out of the juice at the end. Trying to get back up to 1-1. Next is going to be Dran Buster against Wizard Rod. I'm hoping to get a quick knockout as usual. However, I missed my crazy fast X-Dash. Second one does hit halfway through, but it doesn't really do much knockback, unfortunately. And now I think Buster has lost most of his power. Yeah, he's just not hit power anymore. He almost manages to hit Rod into the extreme, but just barely short on RPM to do so. And, well, Rod does Rod things. It survives. On the reshuffle, I'm opening with Buster. I feel like it's time to go Buster first, try to get some points. And somehow my Buster ends up going directly into the extreme pocket for my launch. That's obviously a relaunch. On the second launch, I'm actually going to freeze frame this. Molly here is launching Rod up and forwards, hits my hand, which makes me punch away the Beyblade. This actually kind of hurt. At least it was only Wizard Rod, but having to punch a Beyblade with your hand, a little uncomfortable. And that's obviously also a relaunch. And on the next launch, Molly launches too early, which is also a relaunch. And then finally, believe it or not, after 3 missed launches, we finally keep playing the game. I launch Buster and crit Rod into the extreme. Next, I go Grand Strike against his Tyranno Roar again. I'm hoping to redeem myself this time. Gotta prove Strike is good, you know? Get some crazy hits back and forth. And Tyranno Roar just gets exploded. Too many hits, cannot maintain its spin anymore. Finally, gonna be, once again, Phoenix Wing against the Wolf. Wolf just deflects Phoenix. Phoenix loses control completely and flies straight into the extreme. Very messy game, but we do take it. And with that, it is time for the losers semi-finals. My opponent is also running Shark Scale, Wizard Rod, and Cobalt Dragoon. Third time I've seen it today. It's a pretty good deck, so it makes sense people are bringing it. I decided to open with Drain Buster this time. Kinda expecting them to go Shark, and I feel like Busters are a better chance of beating it than Strike. We send the launches. Big contact almost sends Shark into the extreme, but he barely hops out, and then Buster just loses all his spin somehow. Unfortunate. Almost had 3 points there, but just barely missed. Second launch is going to be Wizard Rod against Duran Strike, and I almost boom it into the extreme again. But it barely misses the pocket. Strike really trying to knock out Rod here. Sending a flying across the stadium, but just can't secure a knockout, unfortunately. Now for launch number 3, it is, once again, Wolf versus Dragoon, which is not ideal. Last time I somehow won it by, I don't even know, RPM diffing out the wazoo. I don't know if it's gonna work again, I'm gonna be honest. I'm trying it. And I could definitely outspin Dragoon if it never hits me, but that is just unrealistic. Elevate makes it move around so much, it's basically guaranteed to hit me eventually. And it looks like the RPM diff is not enough this time to prevent the spin steal. Yeah, it's just eating up my spin. Unfortunately, the matchup against Dragoon, in general, if you have a stamina type, is not ideal. There's a few ways to go about it. You can maybe go for like an aggressive tilt launch, try to like recoil them into the pocket, or again, insanely RPM diff them, but then you run the risk of getting recoiled out yourself. It's very hard beating Dragoon with the Silver Wolf. It looks like it was going to be kind of close at some points, but Dragoon equalizing incredibly well here, and Wolf does run out of juice. On the reshuffle here, I am going Wolf against the Shark Scale, which is a little scary. I also requested a side switch. And on this launch, it is an immediate air contact, which sends me flying to the extreme. We don't immediately catch it. The ref is about to give the opponent 3 points, so I had to quickly actually pause my recording, show him the video. We were able to confirm that it is an air contact, even though my hand was like covering a little bit, but you could tell from the trajectory of my bay is impossible without an air contact, so I'm able to get a relaunch there, thankfully. See if I can maybe come back. Try to land Silver Wolf into the opposite corner. I do kind of do that, but I jump out immediately, and now I'm just hoping, I'm praying to the Silver Wolf gods that I do not get knocked out or bursted or anything. This shark is on a super low setup. It's on a 450 low rush, which is not what you usually see. It's even lower, so I'm very scared of bursting here. It's very possible. Fortunately, though, not this time. We are able to outspin it. We get a point. Time for Shrike once again against Rod. Let's see how we can make work. Shrike almost flies to the extreme. Doesn't quite, though. Almost flicks Rod of the stadium. It flicks it into the pocket, but it just barely hangs back on and comes back in. I feel like Shrike has been getting scammed so many. It's getting a lot of good hit into pockets, but it just the fucking bays keep flying out. They keep coming back into the arena, which is kind of just luck. That's not even Shrike's fault. It's kind of unfortunate, so we do lose another spin. I feel like Shrike has been doing really well, but a lot of the time where he's getting these good knockouts, the bay just flies back in, which is completely out of his control. Now it's time for Buster against Dragoon, trying to get a good burst or a knockout or something, and Buster is really bullying Dragoon here, kind of sending him flying everywhere, but not into the pockets, unfortunately, and he hasn't been able to get a burst yet. And the more time goes on, the more the totalized meter becomes weaker and weaker, and we're not able to get any more crits to do significant damage. No burst, no no-hits, no nothing. And Dragoon, even though it's hard to spin steal with Buster's shape, does still take it, because Buster just naturally has pretty bad stamina. Looking pretty rough for me here. I'm really thinking about my reshuffle. So my point here is going for Shark Scale. I am once again playing Strike, trying to make something work. But he just flings himself into the pocket. Thankfully, does. Or I think that's my first pocket hop. No, it's my second pocket hop, I think, with Trike. And just manages to save himself. So we're still in this, but it is looking scary. Now, I did expect him to go Wizard Rod second here, which is why I put Wolf in the same slot. You get 3 guesses as to what is going to happen here. Did you guess that he would launch on top of the stadium? No, me neither. One thing off camera here, I actually put so much RPM into my Wolf that it bursted in my hand. I probably just unscrewed it a little bit in my launcher though, which perhaps a bad omen for later. Anyway, on the actual relaunch here, I rip high RPM on Wolf. Can you guess what's gonna happen? This time you actually get 3 guesses. It doesn't matter though, because we all know what's gonna happen. Wolf's gonna outspin Rod. Same way he always does. It is still match point for my opponent. They have 6 points. I only have 2, which is pretty rough. I'm trying to make back my points here. Bringing out the Dran Buster. Well, it's been the MVP so far, honestly, in my opinion. It is against Dragoon. You already know the drill. I think this is a good matchup for Buster.
Let order and madness dance.
Even the Teal Elevate does not stand a chance against the Dran Buster. I'm barely holding on here. 6-4. Can I make this comeback? Can I make it all the way to finals? It all depends on this reshuffle. I go Wolf expecting the Rod. I guess wrong. They go Shark. I'm hoping to not get burst or knocked out here. But unfortunately, that 50 height on Shark just makes it impossible for me to take that game. It is what it is. I think I played well. There could have been maybe some reshuffles that I played differently. I think I should have gone Strike, or even I think I should have gone Buster actually on that very last reshuffle. I was kind of low on points anyway. I needed to get points back. I don't think counter the Rod with Wolf necessarily the best idea because of my point situation. It is what it is. That is the end of my run. You know, I was only allowed to lose once because I immediately lost the first round. These are the final scores for all the bays in this deck. Strike looks a little bit fraudulent here, but I will say in his defense, there were a couple of launches where he did win, but because my opponent mislaunched, they were given the chance to relaunch. So if we consider that, his points look something more like this. Same for Buster, actually. But with that being said, it's alright. I think Strike's pretty hard to use. I do think he's really good. His weight and his striking power is incredible, but he's a bait that's very dependent on positioning, which I mentioned a while ago as well. Depending on where you land and where you go with Strike, you can get some insane games. Like, I think when he wins like very overpoweringly, but you need to be able to land good launch techs, which I'm still not the greatest with. I still don't own my own arena, so the amount of practice that I have is pretty limited. With that being said, though, I think I played incredibly well. And I did actually manage to place 4th place by making it all the way to semifinals from the losers bracket, all the way from losers round 1 until semifinals. I did get called on the podium. We did like a podium of top 4s versus top 3, which did include me, so I did win 10 bucks, which I then immediately traded for this Ben 10 Funko Pop figure. I don't really like Funko Pops, but Ben Tennyson is Ben Tennyson. I gotta secure that bag. And yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with how I played. Obviously the first match was the first match. I think there were some bad launches here and there, but that was just really bad luck in some instances as well. Strike was robbed of a lot of points. It is what it is. I do really like this deck, honestly. I think if there's anything that I can kind of notice right away is that I'm very weak against Shark. Wolf can get bursted or knocked out, although he does have a decent record against it. Strike in general isn't good against Shark, like just in general. It gets outspun by Shark, usually gets outflung by Shark. It can win against it with a really good launch, but it's pretty hard to do so. And then Buster, I do think Buster can be good against Shark, but the thing about Buster is that he's good against everything. He's also bad against everything. Because he's just such a wild card, he can kill literally anything. Buster is kind of like Cover Wyvern. He can do literally anything, but he can also lose to literally anything. So yeah, I mean, if there's any improvements to the deck to be made, it would be probably something to help my attack versus attack matchups. Yeah, I love the deck. It was super fun. It's a shame that Drain Sword was removed. You know, he is my GOAT still, but I think Drain Strike actually plays really similar to Drain Sword. I think, you know, they're both pretty similar in shape and playstyle, so I'm okay with maybe, at least for like the big tournaments, retiring the Drain Sword for Drain Strike is a lot of fun. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe so I can hit 10,000, 10 million even. I'll see you in the next one.